I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Okay, have a listen to this.
Radio was a lifeline, and the CFNY was a trigger point that inspired the song, The Spirit of Radio.
We began to break into North America when CFNY started playing us.
The largest gig we ever played as New Order was in Toronto.
Here with The Spirit, CFNY.
It was the first radio station where we got the sense that the DJs actually loved music.
Okay, so the voices that you just heard there, these are members of 4 iconic bands, and they're all talking about how CFNY transformed their lives. That's the alternative radio station based in Toronto. It's now known as The Edge, has always been 102.1 FM. It's a station that has this deep trend-setting legacy, and there's this new documentary about that legacy. It is called CFNY, The Spirit of Radio. And our friend Liisa Ladouceur is here to tell us about it. Hello, Liisa. How are you?
I'm great. I just got to start my morning by air drumming to Rush. So I'm good.
That's a good place to start the day. Listen, CFNY, or now 102.1 The Edge, as it's now known, has been on the air for nearly 50 years. But this documentary kind of looks at primarily, sort of a period in the late 70s to late 80s. What is it about that era of time that makes it, worthy of a whole documentary?
Well, I mean, if you're listening to this show, you probably understand the power of radio.
Yeah.
And this radio station has a mythology around it, certainly in its formative years, because it was doing something that no other commercial radio station was doing at the time, which was letting DJs pick the music.
What?
How crazy is that?
Imagine that.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could hear all styles of music on this radio station. You could hear punk rock and prog rock and house music, and that was so different and so exciting for people, not just the bands who had a chance to get their music heard, but people all around Toronto. And then, it kind of became much bigger than that. But this documentary focuses on those formative years.
I mean, the song "Spirit of Radio," like it owes its name to this radio station. Like that's how big of a deal it was.
I think that a lot of modern listeners of CFNY who know it as an alternative or modern rock station format would be surprised with the Rush connection. But there it is.
Let's talk a little bit about your relationship to it, because you were one of those listeners who had their minds blown by this radio station in the 80s. Tell me what it was like to find a radio station like CFNY. And when you were growing up, you're like, oh, okay, this is the place for me. What does that feel like?
Oh, man, it was so cool. Like, I was a teenager in a small town about 2 hours away from Toronto, which was about 1 hour too far away to get CFNY. But I got much music, so I had started discovering new wave. And then one day I opened the newspaper, my grandfather's subscription to the Toronto Star, and I saw top 10, top 100 songs of the year, CFNY. I was like, there's a radio station that plays The Cure? That's my new favorite band. So whenever I was in range, I would tune in. And I would continue to tune in on the car radio. Long after it became so staticky, my mom would be like very mad. She's like, this is terrible. Please turn this off. I'd be like, no, I just want to hear the back announce to know what this song is. So, and then later we had something called the Video Roadshow, which they talk about in the documentary, which brought CFNY to high schools all around Ontario. That's where I met my best friend in high school. It's where I first met Martin Streak, who was the host of the Roadshow and became an important DJ here in the city. So I feel like CFNY has been in my life for a long time.
Because also the thing that you just said, like the idea of like, okay, I would whenever I was in range, I would listen to it. The documentary sort of opens inside the first 5 minutes. What you get is like a smash cut of a bunch of people explaining the things that they had to do in order to be able to listen to CFNY, because it didn't have this sort of like broad range in terms of broadcasting. So I think one person was like, they fell off my second floor, like I injured myself trying to put up the antenna. Like all the ways that sort of everyone would just go reorganize their life in order to try to listen to CFNY as much as possible. And like that kind of reminded me of that moment in the documentary.
Yeah, because it was originally from Brampton and it was not a strong signal. So people would get out their coat hangers and MacGyver ways to get the signal. For me, it was being in the car and trying to keep it, as long as possible. I loved that part of the film, actually.
There's a part where Stephen Page is like, well, you could only really get the signal as clear as possible in Scarborough on weekends, and otherwise and otherwise you just kind of have to just like wait the whole week. We heard about in the trailer. This documentary has all these significant names that are in the documentary, right? So like I mentioned Stephen Page of Bare Naked Ladies, but also you got like Emily Haynes of Metric, Derek Whibley of Stum 41. But I think actually the most important voice belongs to this guy.
If you were listening to Ivor doing a show, it was pretty much full punk. It was up to the individual, and it was up to the audience to like or hate it. High risk in the world of radio. I don't think it could be done today.
That's Dave Marsden. He was the program director of CFNY from 1977 to 1987. That's this period of time that we're talking about. Tell us why Dave Marsden is such a significant figure, both in the CFNY story and also just for radio in general.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is a legend of Canadian broadcasting. I knew him as the spirit of radio. You know, he was a program director at CFNY early on, and my favorite DJs would talk about him being their favorite DJ.
Right.
So that's how I knew David Marsden. And then I watched this film and realized, oh no, he was starting from the 50s. You know, he was on a CBC TV show called Music Hop, like that people might remember from Alex Trebek. He was the host of that. He had a character called Dave Mickey, and he would do these weird routines. He's the only Canadian DJ in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And he bounced around to so many radio stations where he would continually get fired for playing music he loved. He was very anti-corporate playlist.
Right. They give him the playlist and go like, no, that's not what I'm playing.
No, and that's what made CFNY. CFNY was having someone like that.
Yeah, this notion of like taste being sort of at the core of what drives a radio station, then people saying, oh, I have a relationship with that taste. That's something that like I think maybe listeners of radio now might not be too familiar with in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, you might find it on campus radio or public broadcasting to a lesser extent, but on commercial radio. Yeah. I mean,
Deep sighs.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends and colleagues in radio who've quit because they're like, you know, I love music too much to be told to play crappy songs.
And I think there's something about this documentary that I think sort of captures what happened, the magic that can happen when someone is saying, this is who I am. This is my taste. Please come and gather sort of around it. Look, I guess let's talk about the film itself. Tell me about your thoughts on the documentary after having watched it.
Well, I'm always glad. I'm always happy to see important cultural bricklayers get their flowers while they're still alive. So I feel that this film is for the people who made CFNY to memorialize them, and for those of us who were there to remember that time. I think young people might find it really interesting that this existed, but I think the filmmakers or maybe the editors, because they did have to cut this down from a larger doc to fit in the TVO 1 hour format, right? They missed an opportunity to talk about, I think, why it was so important in the greater scheme of things. And they talked a lot in the film about how new wave and punk broke in North America, which is kind of belongs in a different doc, I feel. I'd rather hear more about like Deadly Headley Jones and playing house music. Or, again, my friend Martin Streak was treated very weirdly in this film. But overall, I'm glad it exists as a document of this important time.
We sort of talk about this idea of the different iterations of CFNY, now the Edge 102.1. It's a bit more sort of streamlined modern rock radio station that exists now. As you're watching this documentary, do you kind of walk away being like, this gave me a hit of nostalgia here? Or are there lessons that you think we can take away for this media landscape right now?
Oh, for sure. I watched this and I was like, man, this was our WKRP. This was like, let the weirdos run the show. Give freaks and people with wild ideas, give them money, let them do what they do. Amazing things will come from it.
I think that's such a valuable lesson to remember, especially in a period of time that feels like especially devoid of freaks. Like I feel like everything feels very like algorithm driven and very just kind of like corporatized in that way. And I keep going, hey, where are the weirdos and what are they making? Not because I'm going to love it, but just because I'm going to have an actual relationship to it in a sense.
Yeah, I loved being able to see people's faces who I only knew as voices growing up. And especially people like David Marsden who are still actively pushing and doing interesting things with the radio format.
I find something comforting about watching this documentary and also like remembering that like this is such recent history that we are talking about. I mean, like such recent history that everyone who was there is there to talk about in this documentary, but also the idea that we're talking about a period of time of 1977 to 1987 and people saying that's how quickly things can change. That's how quickly you can sort of create something really special. Liisa, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Happy to be here.
Yes, of course. Liisa Ladouceur is a Toronto-based freelance writer. You can stream CFNY, The Spirit of Radio, right now on tvo.org or on YouTube. That's it for the show today. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. I should tell you that tomorrow on the show, we are talking about heated rivalry. I was watching yesterday as Hudson Williams from that show was entering the Jimmy Fallon studio, and it looked like I've never seen that many people crowding a door. And I just want to talk about how this tiny little Canadian show got to this place where there's just so much attention on it. I'm excited about that conversation. That's happening tomorrow morning. In the meantime, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.